Woo! Put the QA to the right, put the chat to the left. All right. Welcome, welcome everybody to, I guess this is the last day this week for Lunch and Learns. I think tomorrow we have off. Yeah, okay. Monday through Thursday, Lunch and Learns from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. I'll be your host for today, Jared Rodriguez. You can call me J-Rod if my name's too long, because sometimes it is. So we'll be just messing around with decisions, answering some questions, and just learning how to use the product better. So, but before we begin, I just want to talk about a event that is happening at Decisions, where we'll be hosting an event that you guys are welcome to come to, where customers, Decisions employees can attend workshops. And you can learn more about the product, about building industry applications and decisions. You can learn about the success of other people there, other customers who will be attending that workshop. And then there will also be some classes about how to identify what to comment next and all those different things. So it's going to be a great experience. It's going to be held in Norfolk, Virginia. October 4th through the 6th is the date. And I know I'll be there because I'm part of the training team. So you'll see me around there, and I'd love to meet all of you guys and talk about decisions and help you guys out however way that I can. So mark that on your calendar. We'd love to have you if you can make it. That would be great. All right. With that out of the way, let's go and dive into a question that we got asked. So I think it was Ion or John asked a question about, is there a way I'm assigning an assignment to a guest user? Is there a way to reuse it and then see their last question in the post? So John, do you want to elaborate on that? Or is your name John or Ion? I see yours is different.
John, it's work fine, John.
John, okay, awesome. Do you want to
So
elaborate?
Ion, it's an adopted, John, it's an adopted name. Ion, it's my official, but doesn't. So quick, I will be quick.
Sure.
The idea behind is this: you have an assignment, and somebody from your team show me and teach me that there is a way to reuse an assignment. Okay, which is great, and it's working fine.
Okay.
But if I want to send an assignment to a guest, if I want to reuse, I mean, I am using a button like save for later, you see, something like this. So in that moment, I cannot reuse. So what's happened? Anytime when I click on the save for later button, the assign to guest is generating a new URL. Which makes sense. And I mentioned, for me, makes sense because why? I mean, the guests are supposed to log into the tenant only when he or she has a valid URL. That makes sense for me. But question is there a way to retain the URL link which was previously issued? What do you think about this?
No, that's an interesting question. So I just want to reiterate. So it sounds like you're trying to find a way that you've gotten a way to save the data from a guest assignment. But then the next step of that is is there a way to maintain the assignment URL?
Yeah, so again, it's not, no, it's not, this question does not bother me so much. Perhaps I can move forward with the way how it's working now, but I want to know what is the situation, because the customers, they ask me, hey, rather I would prefer to keep the assigned URL instead to generate a new one all the time. Now, you see, I said, no, maybe that's the way how applications are supposed to work. Let's be frank, but I don't know here.
Gotcha. So so you're just trying to find out if we can keep it the same way. Let's see. Let me see if I can mess around with because I'm trying to generate my own assignment URL and see if I can get that. Let's see. So I got that. I'm set up. So let's do this. I don't know off the top of my head, instead of just muddling around and trying to figure it out, let's do this. I'm going to ask in our support channel, John.
It's much better. And if you look to the question which I posted, perhaps it helped. And that's it. Yeah. You don't have to waste time with me. And I have one more question, if you don't mind. I will be very quick.
Sure.
And that's it with me. So think about this. You taught us that anytime when we build an integration to follow a pattern for the for the designer folder. You remember, use data, designer structure, folder, form, everything, which is great. Question which I have now is this. Okay, I build the integration. The customer, they have access to the data folder. That's the folder where they should look what they are doing. But question is, how to allow the customer to run the main folder in the first place? Because the customer now having access only to the portal, he or she should not have access to the folder, to the flows, the folder flows, flows folder. Okay, sorry, forgive me. You see my point. So how to allow the customer to run the main flow?
Gotcha. Via, so there's several ways you could do this. I'm going to try to parameterize the question. So are they trying to run it via a URL? So let's say I have a
no, they will log into decision. This is the way how the integration is kick off. Log into decision and start from there.
Gotcha. And you don't want them to see all those designer folders to that flow, correct?
No, I would prefer to leave them away. They should look only to the data folder. That's it. No, it's...
Gotcha. Okay, I think I understand. So how we would do that is we have this workflow catalog. So I'm just going to create a simple flow. Let's see, create, flow one, why not? And then I'm just going to create a simple form here. Let's see, create form. This is going to be a simple form. I'm just going to add a text box so I can put in a text box data. And I'll say this is just data. So I can show this. All right. Then we're going to put this here, put this here. Okay. Let's debug, make sure it works. All right. So this is the flow that we're going to put to allow our end users to run. So in regard to your question, what we would do is, one, I can make it a workflow catalog item. So I can go into my system folder. And in our system folder, what we can do is we can say, hey, let me go into the applications. Let's see, where am I? Applications. And then we can go to a workflow catalog. I already have some workflow catalog items created for this environment. And so that's what will appear here for that user. However, let me just add that flow that I just created. So add run flow. I'm going to say this is the the workflow. And then I'm going to pick that simple flow that I just created, flow one. All right. So now your question, now this is the part that's going to actually go directly with your question, is how do I limit the end user to only come in to where they don't see all these folders? They just see this workflow folder. And what we do in that scenario is, one, we make sure that a user account has access to, that the user account has access to this specific workflow catalog folder. So by default, I'm just going to use the manage permissions here, and I'm going to add the all users. Now in your, and I'm going to give them can use, can open, can view. Now in your environment, maybe you have your own type of user group that you want to use. That's fine. I'm just going to use the all users group as just a demonstration. So I pick the all users group. I'm going to click OK. Then I'm going to save the permissions. Now what I'm going to do is I don't have an extra user account, so I'm just going to create one real quick in my environment.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I understood.
Don't. Oh, you understood? Okay,
yes, perfect. It's clear. It's clear. The only, okay, I understand the idea with security, how it works, everything is fine. The only thing which I was not sure and I don't know is this: my flow, it's already in a folder. So what you did, you create another folder. Is that correct? But the question, I mean, you created another one. It's a workflow catalog.
Kind of. So I didn't create another folder. It's already created in the decision system. So all I did, all I did here is I just said, hey, for this, for this catalog here, I want to add another flow, and I hit the add a run flow right here. And when I do that, I can just pick that flow I want that user to run. And when they log into the system, they will only see that workflow in their workflow catalog to run. They won't see any of the designer projects. They won't see any of that stuff. They will only see that flow.
This is the piece which I don't see in my tenant, the workflow catalog, but I will figure out where is it and why we don't use it.
Sure.
But it's fine. So if you pick, so you can pick any flow from any folders, doesn't matter. You can pick any from anywhere. You can pick the flow and move it here in the workflow catalog. Is that correct?
So yes, you can utilize any flow that you want in the workflow catalog, but I just want to make sure I clarify this. You don't need to move your flow. So notice my flow in my Lunch and Learn folder. I think it was here, flow 1. It's still in my reusing guest account folder.
Perfect. Okay, I think I understood. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, and Jared, you can also, did you show when you right click a flow that's existing, how to publish it to the catalog that way? So you don't have to navigate to that folder.
That's a good way too. Yeah, so another way, John, that Morgan was mentioning that's kind of a lot faster so you don't have to go down through the tree is you can just right click it and there is, I know it's here, it's edit and publish to workflow catalog. So that will do the steps that I did manually faster like that for you. And you just give it a name and stuff.
Perfect. Sounds good. This is the piece which I missed. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thanks, Morgan, for that call out. Alrighty, I think we have another question in the chat. All right. So John asked another question. I'm using an event button inside a form, which is inside of a form that triggers a data flow to run. After that data flow is finished, I want the form to close automatically. How can I do that? Thanks. So let's see. Yeah, John, could you expound upon that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's something I've been working on. I managed to make it work. The form has a table inside, which is a data grid, where you can update some fields called quantities. And then the idea is you click on a button there on the form that is called Save Changes. And then, I mean, this form is inside a main flow. The main flow gets the information that will fill out the form data grid. Then it sends that data, shows it in the form. And then what I want is when you click on Save Changes, is already running a data flow that runs great. And then I want, after this data flow run is finished, to close the current form I'm working on and continue with the main flow. You know what I mean?
Yes, I think I got what you mean. So let's kind of build that real quick, because I think, so let's see, we're gonna have a flow. So this is going to be our main flow. You'll quickly find I don't have very creative names for my flows. Show form, we'll build another form.
Yep.
And so from what I'm understanding is you have a form, this is gonna be my data grid form, that displays, and you have this, and then we have another button.
Yeah.
It's an event button, you said, right?
Yeah, I'm
save
using
changes.
Yeah, I'm using an event button to call the data flow there. Yep.
I gotcha. So save changes, and this is just going to be our done. All right, and I'll create a quick data structure just so I can have some type of values that replicates your use case. So I'm assuming, let's say this is like purchase requests or requested items, right?
Yep.
And I'm gonna have like the item name.
The item name and item quantity is fine. So you.
Yeah, quantity. Oops, quantity, and then let's say I'll just add cost in there just in case. So we have decimal, an integer, and then a string, decimal, integer. Let's see. Perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to the main flow. Let me connect this up. Add my data grid. Now I'm curious, did you use an advanced data grid or just normal data grid?
No, normal data grid.
Normal data grid? Okay, so just data grid. Okay, I gotcha. So data grid, we're gonna put this here. Connect that all the way down here. And then actually, let me do this down because I'll do a data grid add button for me and a data grid remove button, just so I can simulate that behavior.
Yeah, I'm not using I'm not using buttons to add or remove. I'm just making the one of the fields editable. So I use inline edit, and let's say you can edit the quantity there. That would call the data flow, and then I want to close the form. That's the idea, the general idea.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so when you hit that, the flow that you're running on that button, is it just another form is your sub dialog essentially is kind of running in there in that second?
Inside the.
Yeah, so there's an inline edit that kicks off a flow, and that flow's got the form.
Got you. Inline edit. So let's see, pick the types. We got that type. And then edit cell. Click. Yep, that's what you got there. And then, okay, so I see. So you're running it on value change. Whenever you do that, run that to save that data.
No, it's not on value change. It's on button click. I mean, when you click on the save changes, that would call the data flow. Not before.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I'm just using these add and remove buttons because I don't have data in that structure. So just so I have some data to mess around with. So that's why I have that. But yeah, it's on.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. There. Okay, perfect. So we got that. And that should give me.
So do you have a form in your data flow? Is that correct?
What do you mean, a form inside the data flow?
Yeah, when you said you wanted to close that other form, or is this form the form that has your data grid on it, the form that you're trying to close?
No, the idea is like this. I have a main flow where I call two subflows that basically get information for me. One of these gets the requested items, and then it continues with opening a form. That is the form that has the data grid inside and shows the items I got from the subflow. And so there I want to edit the quantities, then click on save changes, and that would make something with all these that have been updated on the table. That is great. I mean, all the data flow stuff is working great. The only thing I'm not being able to do is that when I click on save changes, it shows the loading indicator. The data flow finishes, but it keeps like spinning, and it doesn't close the form. It doesn't do anything else. You know what I mean?
So after you want that to run, you want just data flow to run, form to close.
Form to close, and then continue with the main flow, whatever it needs to do after closing the form. But yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Okay, so let's see. So I'm going to say, hey. So we have our active form flow here that I have configured, and what I'm going to do is this is going to save the changes. So I'm going to use my create step to create those values for my database structure. And see purchase requests.
Yeah, inside the data flow, you don't need really to do anything. You can just get it to the end step. I just want that after it runs the data flow, it closes the form and check that that works basically.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm going to get to that part. So what I'm doing here is this is the part where it's just going to create. So let's say I'm only going to create one item. So let's say data grid on value. But anyway, actually, let's just skip that. So basically what you can do is I can have it run through a record and create a record here. And we're just going to put some basic values in here. 5. Let's say this is, let's say item. And then the quantity is also 5. And then there is, I believe, in the form rules, because your situation sounds like you can use a outcome. And so I can say, let's see, right there, I can use an exit form. Are you on version 7 or 6?
No, version 6.
Version 6? Okay, because I know in version 7, we can say exit the form, and then we can pick our outcome path from our form data and say, button is the name of it. So what would happen is I would create a record here. And then as soon as I finish that sub dialog, it will close the form. So just to see this, and I'll pop over in version 6 and I can show you that there as well. So I can debug this, start this, I can add something, I can say, hey, do this, and right. Since I didn't map in the inputs of that create step, it's not going to create that data. But what's going to happen is when I say save changes, it's going to error out, and we'll find out why. Let's see, do an exception. Oh, I think at the outcome scenario, I didn't map it in correctly. So my outcome, oh, that's why, because my outcome scenario is done. So let me set this to done and make sure that I have that active form flow configured correctly. I'm going to edit this flow, exit the form. I'm going to edit this. I'm going to say form data, bottom bar, done, and we're going to say the outcome name. And now that one should exit the form as expected. All right, debug this. We'll just add some example value here. I'm gonna do 6 and then save the changes. And then now I hit the event button and then it went down that executed path and it ran that rule flow that I ran. So that's how it looked like in version 7. Now for your version, let's pop over and do version 6 and show you what that would look like there.
So I have to call in the data flow something like a step that would close out the form.
So that's if you're using version 7. For version 6, what you have to do is you can utilize the outcome rules. That's the avenue that we would say, hey, if this value has been completed, or if based on these conditions, run on this exit. So let's go ahead and we'll just create a really, oh, I got a test flow right here. Perfect. It's already ready for me. And so I'm just going to delete that. Yeah, I know. And so now let's add another form. And then we're going to pick the create form. Then I'm going to say show form, or no, this is going to be the edited grid form. And then I'm going to click create. And then I'm going to say action outcome. I'm going to say this is the done. And then we'll have an event button. So event button right here. And then I'll have a data grid. Data grid here. And again, I'm just going to put those 2 buttons there just so I have a value to edit, but I know that's not in your paradigm. All right, and this is going to be data. And after I do that, let's see, let me create that type. And then when I create that type, we'll be good to go to test this out. So purchase items, item name. Then we're going to have, let's say quantity, then cost, decimal int, save. And then once that compiles, we can go back into our form, connect this up. And then I'm going to pick that type that I just created. So recent, and it should be purchase items right there. That's the one I used. And then custom on, we'll move all this stuff. Perfect. Okay. And then inline edit. So we want, and then it's going to be edited data is the output. Alrighty. So we have an event button. And so your event button is running a data flow, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So we're going to add that data flow. And then we're going to say on event button, click. And then test create. And say test edit data flow. All right, and then for the sake of, and then what we'll do is we'll have it run something. So let's say we'll just do a create data step. Create data. I'm gonna say some mock values. And then test 2, test 3, and test 1. And we'll give it some values. Okay. Okay. So now what we want is when this finishes, we want this to exit the outcome. Okay, save. We should be good now. Now run on startup, run on click.
Yeah, I put there the loading indicator, and that's what keeps spinning after, because it doesn't do anything. I mean, it finishes the data flow, but it doesn't close or do anything else after that.
Okay, so here's what I would say we'd have to do. So this one might take a little bit more logic to do. So if, okay, I think I got it. So what we'd have to do is let me actually configure that data flow a little bit more to make it reflective of your actual use case. So let's say this may not be how you have yours set up. I'm going to have mine set up to show you the logic on why I'm doing it this way. So I'm going to take in a list of items for me, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, any item that I've added, and when I hit save changes, I want to create records for those. So let's take in some requested items, and then it's going to be of type.
Purchase items.
Yeah, purchase item. Thanks. Purchase items. And that's going to be could be a list. So we're going to close this. And then what I'm going to do is just create that data. User defined types, database structures, purchase items, create purchase items. And then the done path is going to be here. And let's build this. So we're going to do costs, should be the item. I didn't map it in. Purchase items, perfect. And then edit, we're going to go to item is going to be cost. Thanks. Item name. And then quantity, we're going to add that there. Item quantity, perfect. All right, so now we're going to have that. And then what I want to do is once I create those items, then I want to, then we're going to want, then we're going to want to close the form. But here's the thing we'll have to do is we'll have to, okay, that's going to be an interesting way to do it. So here's how I would do this. And then I would output. And I'm going to get all. Let's see. And I'm going to say get all purchase items. And then I'm going to call this updated purchase items, updated purchased items. And then I'm going to say purchase items. Purchase items is a list. And so that's what we're going to output. So I'm going to select from flow and say, that's going to be the results path from here. So, and essentially what I'm doing is I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to create these new records, and then I'm going to get all those new records, and I'm going to output it. So I update this, I'm going to edit this form component, and it's going to be the edited. I don't think that's correct. Let me click OK. Form component edited, we'll do that. Because what we can do is I can say, see, what's the input of this? The input of it should be just data. Okay, and then edited is the output name. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, any of my fellow decisionites, but I think that's correct, right? Data is the input. This is the input part side, and the edited is the output. Output data. So I'm just gonna rename that just so I know for my. So then what I would do for your use case is we would have to create an outcome rule, because an outcome rule states that, hey, we can say, hey, if this has been changed or edited, then I want you to exit this outcome. So what we would do is we'd add this rule, and the outcome path in this case would be named done. And I'm going to say this is exit on on data change, right? Because if they change it, you want them to leave.
Yeah.
And then what we do is we'd add new for the rules. And so with this section here is just saying we're naming the outcome rule, exit on data change, and the path that we want it to go out from. And then what we want to do is we want to say, hey, we want to give the rule name. So this is going to be evaluate change data grid changes. And then I'm going to create this rule. I said evaluate data changes. Then we're going to go into the rule designer, and then I can create the two inputs of purchase updated or purchase items list. And this is going to be purchase items. So that's going to be purchase items. And then I'm going to have another one called updated purchase items. That's also going to be a list. And I'm just going to compare those two lists to see if there's a change. So if the purchase items, let's see, it contains.
Yeah, I don't think I really need to see if there are really any changes. I mean, the user would just click on save changes, and it will call the data flow. If there are any changes, it will send an email with the changes done there, with the deltas, with the differences. And if not, it will just close the form, and that's it. I mean, I don't need to check really if there would be any changes really or not. I just want to close the form after the data flow is being run, you know?
That might be a simpler way. I know, but in my head, the only way I can think of closing the form after, at least in version 6, is utilizing an outcome rule, but I could be wrong. Any of my fellow decision-ites, have you used another one after that?
I haven't used it in a while, but I think an end form session step might also work in your data flow there. You just specify the folder you want to navigate them to.
And let's do that. Let's give that a shot. So we have our data flow. And let's say we did something with this data flow and then end form session.
Yeah, because that data flow is related to a form. So if it's running there, it should do something with that maybe.
So close dialog window, is that the one you're referring to, Morgan?
Yeah, you can also do the navigate to a different location as well if that was more fitting. But yeah, I think that should work for us, hopefully.
Okay, let's try that. Okay. We'll see. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to save this and close this.
Sure.
And then let's see, we add, I didn't touch it, but let's say I want to raise the event. And we see that's running. And
yeah, that's what is happening to me. Yeah, that it keeps spinning the loading indicator, and the data flow is finished, but it doesn't do anything else. It should at least stop spinning the loading indicator if the data flow has finished. I think.
Let's raise the event again. I'm wondering if it was just in the debugger if I'd do it here.
Yeah, we can try. What are the other options there for that end form session step? I know you can navigate to another location, but
yeah, let's give it a shot. Data flows. Where is it? I just had it. There it is. Data flows, edit, and let's navigate to. I just want to navigate to. Open portal, new window. Okay, navigate. Let's navigate to. Let's see. Let me grab a folder ID that I can use.
I'm wondering if that'll actually like submit the form and hit that button though for us.
If it'll do what?
If we navigate off the form, if it'll actually submit and continue on the process, you know?
I don't think it would. That's why I think the best way to do that is doing that outcome rule, because right, there's going to be some editing on that form, and in order to know what's been edited to tell decisions to go out of the outcome, I think that'd be the best way to do it, even though it's a little more, it's a little more in depth to do that. Let's go back to my grading folder. Or I'm just gonna navigate back to my inbox. Let's do manage. I know my documents. Let's go to my documents. That'd be fine. Get users document folder. Perfect. And then when we go here, I want to say the folder ID. And I don't think there is a page name on this, so I'm just gonna leave this as ignore, because there is no page on that. All right, so now let's try this again. Close. Or actually, I'm just gonna skip this part of the process and let's just see what happens. All right, debug. Let's see. The moment of truth, everyone. Raise event. So it looks like it's still is stuck on the user session, doesn't close out of the form. So I wonder if this could be something, I would have to talk to our internals team to see if there's a better way to handle that, if we can leave it. Because I know in version 7, like I showed you, it's easier to do that because you can just say, hey, exit the form on this, and then it just exits the form. But in version 6, I'm not sure. So let me take my notepad out and I'll write down those questions. How to leave exit a form on via an event button. And then the other one, changing the guest URL.
Not sure if this step necessarily works, but I'm just looking, buried in the internal service under integration step. You have the form services steps there. There's one that's called close.
On form service?
Yeah, form designer service.
Form designer service.
There's form and form designer service that are, so it's under integrations, internal services, and form.
Form designer service or form service?
Form service.
Form service, okay.
And the form designer service will close your designer window.
Designer, okay.
That's what I thought. Form close, execute form closed.
To that one.
Keep tracking temporary page context ID. I would have to mess around with this step to see what, tracking ID that I need to get with that stuff. Because that seems like a little bit more involved. So, but yeah, I'll check back. Let me ask, I'll ask on our support channel, and then someone may have done this. I know instead, like I said, in version 7, it's pretty easy. Just, hey, do it this way, boom, and you're good. Version 6, I think if there's either some way you'd have to create that rule to make it work on the outcome paths for outcome rules. But I'll check and I can make sure that we can get back to you. What was your name again? John, right?
No, I'm talking. I'm Jonathan. I think because John is the person that sent me the link that I have for these questions and answers. So probably I don't know why it's running with his name. But yeah, do you want me to give you my email or something? So
yeah, I'll put my email address in the chat. So if I have to follow back up with you guys, then just send me an email. Okay. And and here's my email address, jared@decisions.com. And I'll ask around for you guys. And if I get an answer, I'll email you guys what information that I found.
Okay, I'll send you an email with these details we've been working on today. Thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right. Then we got another one from Scott. I have a form with a vertical stack that contains a lot of header containers that are collapsible. Is there a way to create and expand all? Is there a way to create and expand all / collapse all form control on the form? Their way to create, let's see. Let's test it out. So I'm going to delete this stuff. I'm going to delete my data flow. A form with a vertical stack contains a lot of header data. a lot of header containers that are collapsible. So we do expand all / collapse all control on the form. Let's see, I don't believe, I'm gonna open up to my other fellow decisionites. Do you guys have experience with expanding all or collapsing all? So vertical stack. If not, let's build one together. All right, so we have a vertical stack.
So it could be just your visibility rules, right, with your vertical stack. So as long as you have a bunch of components on different grids, if you have visibility rules to hide and show those grids, if those grids are on a vertical stack, they'll either show or hide and either collapse. Basically, if they hide, everything below them that's still showing will move up and kind of expand. So whatever's hidden will, essentially disappear and be not viewed, and everything else will take up that space.
Are you using version 7? If we can allow him to speak. Are you using version 7, Scott, or version 6?
Version 6.
Version 6. Okay, good. Because I was going to say it will directly impact on how I approach demonstrating this. Because the thing that came to my mind when Morgan was talking was, yeah, you can hide show, and you can create a way to like show all or hide all with a checkbox. So if I have a header container, put this here. And so let me make sure I name this. This is going to be header grid 1. And this one's going to be header grid 2. And this one's going to be header grid 3. All right, and this title is going to be, this is going to be H1. I'm going to put one in here, and we'll call this one H2. And then we'll call this one over here H3. H3. And then I'm just going to add my checkbox here. There we go, checkbox. So let's do a little checkbox right there, and it's going to be show all or hide all. Or I'm going to say this is, yes, show all. And then we'll rename it show all. Okay, so now when we go into our header grid, I know there's a behavior here that you have set that says is collapsible, right? View border is collapsible, yes. And then over here you have is collapsible, yes. And it's collapsible, yes. So I know what we can do, and then I have to make sure that my vertical stack grid says fit children. There we go. And then what I can do is I can say on the different grids, I got a data flow or a visibility rule. And I'm going to say, hey, this is going to be check the checkbox. Checkbox is true. And I'm going to create this. And I'm going to say, hey, box is true. Create. And then the information here, I'm just going to pass as just the checkbox value, which is the Boolean. And then I'm going to set this there. Let's say this checkbox is true. That there equal true. The inputs, grab the component, show all. We do want it to run a value change. And then what we'll say is hide hide if it evaluates false. And so what we're going to do is we're going to apply to the controls. So it's going to be the header grid 1, 2, and 3. All right, let's click OK. All right, let's see how this works. All right, let's debug. Let's see if I got my logic right. Boom. So I have my lot true is true, so returns true. So then hides it that way. So this is where we can get it to hide, but I believe that your question was specifically for collapsing them, right? How do I make it to do this instead?
Yeah,
correct?
the use case on this is essentially like a knowledge base, and so you've got your headers are your group titles, and then the data inside would expand on those groups. And so the issue that we're running into, I keep getting asked, can we search through the entire list? Well, you can't do a search while they're collapsed. And if we expand them all by default, you can search, but it's kind of messy. So
yeah, I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, my fellow decision-ites, but I don't believe there is a way to isolate the is collapsible property on it to make it do that dynamic way. I believe that would be something we'd have to ask as a feature request if we can say, hey, can we get the header container to have this property as a field that I can say, hey, in my visibility rules or something like that, that you could do it that way. Alex had a comment, said, I heard that what Scott is describing is called an accordion widget. Yeah, there's also that too. If you, in decisions, you can also put in like your own JavaScript controls. And so you can write it through JavaScript and put it in, and you can have it in that way. But utilizing the header container, I don't believe there is a way to isolate this property. Am I,
okay.
Yeah. Is anyone on support on the call? I'm just curious from the decision side. Okay, because I was gonna say we can submit that as a feature request and see if maybe in future iterations of version 6 or maybe in 7 they'll add that property as something configurable so that you can create an accordion style widget in the decisions forms.
Okay.
I'll write that down. Feature request. Widget. Alrighty. Any other questions? Alex commented, maybe it can be done by using a pop-up form in the content related to the header to collapse. Pop-up form. I still think the issue here is just that this property, the is collapsible property here, is just not. It's statically configurable within the form, but it's not something I can dynamically address to say, hey, I want this control, this header container, name. So if I called it like the third header container, I should be able to get access to that form control property and say, is collapsible.
Yep.
Now,
you got it. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Now let's do this though. I'm curious because I know in 6 we don't have that, but I know in decision 7 we have active form flows, which gives us access to different different control properties. So I'm wondering, since that's different in 7, if I have access to that property where we can say, hey, let's make it collapsible. So let's say form, header container form. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to add a vertical stack, or actually we can just add a bunch of header containers. So header container, put that one in here. We'll have this occupy that much. And I'll call this H1. And then I'll put this here and I'll call this H2. we're just gonna use these two for right now. And I know we have is collapsible, yes, is collapsible. I'll put this here. Okay, and let's just put in like a text box or something, just so that we can confirm that there's something in here. Let's see. Date picker. Perfect. And yes, it's going to be very huge. Test. And we'll test 2. Okay. Add my button. Okay, now here's the part I'm curious about. So if I create an active form flow, and then I say, can I hide collapse or open? That's what I want to know. Yeah, let me, forgot to add my checkbox. So let's see if we want to do it from checkbox. So collapse. Okay, now let's create that active form flow and see if we can do it that way. So this is collapse. HC header containers, and we're going to do this on the value change at the checkbox. Let's edit the rule flow. And here's what I'm hoping. So if I go to my data explorer, I have access to all this form data here. So let's do header container. And it looks like we don't have that property available. Because right here, so here's what I was thinking we should have in Scott, is if in version 7, we should have the ability to have like, you have instead of, or in tandem with a visible Boolean, we should have an is collapsible Boolean, so that I can manipulate that value and say, hey, I want this to be true, I want this to be false, and then it should be able to give us that property. So that's what I was hoping, but it looks like it does not give me that feature here in version 7 as well. So yeah, I'll put that as a feature request in both versions to see if that's a capability we could add, because I think that'd be really cool. I'm a big fan of accordion style buttons, so get that submitted.
Yep, cool. They have their uses, so appreciate it.
My pleasure. Any other questions? All right. Well, I know we only have 8 minutes left, so I will let you all go. Thanks for joining this installment of Lunch and Learns. We'll see you guys, I believe. Sabrina, we're not, are we doing Lunch and Learn on Monday or no?
No, we are off for the US holiday.
Okay, that's what I thought. So we'll resume the Lunch and Learn on Tuesday. And so you'll see us again back at that time. All right, everyone, you take care.